And nowadays, we talk a lot about 21st century skills. Have you ever thought if 21st century skills are actually related to what we call brain-based learning? We are talking now about critical thinking, problem-solving abilities, communication, collaboration, leadership, and this set of skills, learning, literacy, and life skills. How neuroscience is related to this and how we can leverage all the findings of neuroscience in order to help develop these 21st century skills. Neuroscience is actually one of the most active scientific fields. Its specialists now have tools of incredible precision at their disposal, and they're willing, we could say, more than ever to strive to uncover the most intimate mechanism of our consciousness. The field of neuroscience focuses on the scientific study of the nervous system, analyzing both its structure and its way of functioning, and it belongs to the larger field of family, we could say, of cognitive sciences, which was first introduced in the decade of 50s. And this term actually is in association with 5 founding disciplines: computer science, neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, linguistics, all this context of multidisciplinarity that previous speakers have presented. And soon, however, many more disciplines were associated with it. So the cognitive sciences have experienced a dramatic rise, which can be described as a scientific revolution, and nowadays form a very broad interdisciplinary field where very diverse approaches exist. So for a long time, cognitive science actually were centered on the study of cognitive phenomena. However, very recently, lately, it is the emotions which have been at the forefront of studies in this field. The works of Antonio Damasio, of Joseph Ledoux, are pioneering in this to help popularize the idea that higher intellectual functions are closely connected with emotions. There is no longer a dominant model, but we could say that neuroscience is today the crossroads of all biological, chemical, medical, computer, mathematical, psychological sciences. New brain imaging techniques, advanced study of the brain, and according to Jean Piaget, which is a pioneer in this field, neuroscience will bring us a new vision. So what is the goal of neuroscience? Actually to map the brain and spot the biological processes which are involved in what we call the act of knowing. So we use a cognitive neuroscience in order to indicate this approach, how to understand mental operations and identify links between structures and functions. As I said before, the role of learning, the role of emotion is becoming more and more important when we talk about neuroeducation. And nervous system is actually the main learning tool which is being developed. Brain plasticity is also another important finding. It's the spectacular capacity of the brain to reconfigure itself from a functional point of view in response to stimuli from the environment. This is one of the most important scientific discoveries. And if we talk about neuroeducation, neuropedagogy, is this research approach that attempts to bring together knowledge in both neuroscience and education. It aims to highlight certain educational problems in order to propose solutions, especially in the field of special education and children and students with special education needs and learning difficulties. It's very, very effective. So here you can see a high level of interdisciplinarity, psychology, neuropsychology, neuroscience, neuropedagogy, school psychology, pedagogy, education, neuroscience, all these are involved. And what is actually the objective of neuroeducation is to better understand the cognitive work carried out by the learning during the lesson, how to discover the effects of different types of education in the brain, how to measure the effectiveness of an education intervention, and to more quickly identify students, as I said before, with learning difficulties or special education needs. So what is learning? Learning is a process that takes place in the brain. And more specifically, I would say that it is a metamorphosis, a transformation of existing cognitive structures or the creation of new cognitive structures. If we talk about neurons, we would say it's the creation of new neuron synapses. Recent years would say that neuroscience has become a major pole of attraction for several disciplines and of course education. And today, thanks to sophisticated brain imaging devices, it is possible to study the studies in the brain caused by student learning. So what are these principles? First of all, brain is unique. I mean, we are all different and unique. We all have the same set of systems, but these systems are integrated differently within each brain, and this makes us all different. This diversity is, of course, the result of genetic heritage, of different experiences and environments. Of course, when we talk about learning, learning changes the human brain. While we learn, two types of changes occur in the brain. First of all, a change in the internal structure of neurons and an increase in the number of synapses. This means more dendrites between neurons. So by changing the stimulus or behavior, practical or mental exercise, the brain changes responsibly. So the brain is also modified by experience. So multiple complex, concrete experiences and rich environments are important for the growth of dendrites and the healthy functioning of the brain. And of course, our brain is programmed to learn because we are genetically programmed to explore, discover, reflect, and learn. This is, we could say, a physiological need of the brain. Neuroplasticity of the brain, I mentioned before, because a brain is an organ with extraordinary adaptability and plasticity. Neurons are not fixed, immutable entities. The brain constantly restructures and maintains its plasticity throughout life, and the adult brain also is pliable. The brain also is multifunctional parallel processor because it performs multiple functions on multiple levels in different ways, and it also needs choices. The brain is not preformed, but structured in order to learn what it needs to learn when it is presented with the possibility of choices. The human brain works, searches for order and organization because it seeks to bring order to chaos. Organization, including selection, ranking, and comparison, is a biological necessity of the brain. And this works both linearly and by association because our brain does not organize our thinking in a linear fashion, but globally and by association. It compares, it contrasts, it relates, it integrates, and seeks to give meaning to what it perceives. So association plays a key role in almost all our mental functions. Each word and idea has many links to other words, so the more associations you create in the brain, the more likely it is that information will be encoded in what we call long-term memory, and therefore will be better available for recall. Of course, learning presupposes connections with existing knowledge, with prior knowledge. This is what I said before about the dendrites. Dendrites resemble the branches of a tree, and they develop from the branch that already exists. Therefore, when we learn a new concept or a skill, the learner must first establish a connection with prior knowledge or experience, because this helps the formation of synapses. The brain searches for novelty. Very, very important. When we learn a new information, I said that either we have new neural connections that are made or the old ones are strengthened. So the brain learns when it enriches, when it adapts and assimilates the unpredictable and the new. And we learn what we practice. We learn because when we practice, new fibers, as I said before, new dendrites grow and connect with each other, forming synapses. Practice means making and correcting also mistakes, learning from our own mistakes, and trying constantly. So mistakes are a necessary part of a learning process. Dendrites develop for what is being practiced. Another thing, attention. Attention plays a big role in learning, especially nowadays, attention span has been decreased. The brain, experts say that the brain stays alert only about 10 minutes. So in general, the dropout in the class happens before the quarter of an hour of an activity. So you can understand that the challenge is to find a way to maintain and develop students' attention during a given time. Teachers can capture the attention of learners through multitude of visual, auditory, kinesthetic inputs, new and emotional experience and alternations according to educational neuroscience. And learning involves always conscious processes. Seeks pleasure, very, very important. This has to do with the limbic system. The pleasure center of the brain, or what we call reward circuit, tends to desire the repetition of the stimulus or experience that causes pleasure. So every pleasant piece of information can cause a release of dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that causes feelings of euphoria in the brain, with the production of endorphins, and activates this limbic system. Limbic system is the center of emotions in the brain. So in this way, learning becomes more enjoyable and reinforced with inner motivation, interest, and active engagement. So the learner learns best, as I said before, through a multisensory process, because multisensory stimuli promote the development of the entire cortex, not just one region. Repetition has to do with practice, as I said before. Current neurology has shown that the creation of synaptic connections depends in part on repetition of stimuli. And our brain also is social, because our brain evolves and learns through interaction and experiences with others. The brain seems to like learning from others. Natural development alone is not enough. Brain problem solving, I said problem solving is one of the most important skills nowadays. And the brain is engaged in finding multiple responses to a problem rather than finding the right answer. And due to this process, which involves reasoning, involves critical thinking, high-level cognitive skills, neural growth takes place. So teachers who create challenging, relevant, meaningful, authentic learning environments rich in problem-solving activities and situations, where students can build their own understanding of content, they can organize it, and they can think with the aid of their own cognitive models. Learning and processing of conscious information takes time. We need time to learn because we need time to grow and connect dendrites. The dendrites and synapses perhaps will start to disappear if they are not used in practice. Very important. It's the famous quote of neuroscientists who say, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And remember that in addition, learners have optimal learning times during the day. In general, they tend to receive the most information towards the start of the course, then they experience downtime when retention decreases. So teachers have to organize the varied lessons, make the lessons shorter, and use many different various teaching means and aids. The brain needs temporal breaks because the human brain cannot record an infinite amount of explicit information. It needs breaks in order to internalize and absorb new information and replenish neurotransmitters, these chemicals that transmit impulses from neuron to neuron. And the search for meaning, I said before, is important, the relevance of information, because new learning is more likely to be acquired and remembered if it is meaningful. On the other hand, if it's not meaningful, it will be erased from memory. Patternization, because brain naturally organize information into categories, what we call patterns. And these patterns always involve the interpretation of information in context. Learning pyramid, it's interesting to see here that it's founded on the results of research on memorization, which was carried out in national training laboratories in USA. And this showed actually that after 2 weeks, we tend to retain 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 50% of what we see, 70% of what we see and hear, 70% of what we say, and 90% of what we say and do. These learning pyramids actually illustrates that active participation in the learning process results in increased knowledge building and retention. And learning, let's not forget that it's a holistic process, a process of holistic adaptation. Each hemisphere of the brain processes information accordingly to its specialty, this phenomenon known as lateralization of the brain, and then transmits its decision to the other hemisphere. Emotional learning, I mentioned before, everything we learn is influenced by and organized by emotions and states of minds, feelings, and thoughts shape each other. They cannot be separated. Brain responds to positive suggestions also. Environmental learning, it's important because through this process, the brain creates new neural connections throughout life. So the creation of an environment enriched by new learning experiences, challenges, as well as a stable sensory environment is essential for brain growth. So these are the principles. This is the limbic system, I said before, the center of emotions, hypothalamus, thalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus. And what are the educational implications of all these principles? If educators take into account the functioning of the brain, they can discover the state of students, they can better identify their needs, they can define precise learning objectives for each, dynamically adapt teaching there. Teachers who know these principles, they can maintain the attention of students through sensory motor exercises. They can awaken the senses, emotions. They can provide multisensory presentations, orientate students towards higher cognitive functions, promote active learning, present relevant and meaningful information. Since I said before, the brain is wired to pay attention to things that are relevant to each person and their survival. They offer the possibility of choice and promote the development of a wide range of mental, physical, aesthetic, social, and emotional interests and skills. They use a wide variety of methods. They use thought organizers, concept maps. We said before how the brain classifies information. So the use of mind maps in the classroom, what we call ethic organizers, are very important. So teacher involves all students in the learning process, promotes active learning, and gives rise to various learning experiences. And of course, respect the individuality of each student. Create a pleasant atmosphere, take into account the importance of emotion, engage emotional students, develop emotional intelligence. All these are very important in order to inspire intrinsic motivation, provide enriched environments, and of course, promote high order thinking. Here, I will not have to analyze, but I could say that the mediated devices, the multimedia that we use, are actually based on the functioning of brain. We just don't know about this. Hyperdocument, for example, this resembles the attitude of the user, is close to what of the learner, the association of ideas, trial and errors, paths, and detours. These principles of non-linearity, this is the basic principle of multimedia, resembles the structure of the brain, its networks and intersections, as well as the learning process, since the learner is constantly confronted with periods during which an explosion of knowledge takes place in recomposition phases. Sensory immersion, multimodality, we mentioned before about this, interaction between images and edited sounds and things. All this association, important for the brain also, multi-referentiality, flexibility, autonomy, diversification, active participation of learner, and web use. You all know all the recent data would say that how internet shapes our brain. Feedback exchanges, and if we talk about now, for concluding, how an ideal lesson, according to these principles I presented before, how an ideal lesson plan could be. An ideal lesson plan should include, first of all, talk about preparation before starting to teach a new learning object. Neuroscience says that the teacher needs to capture the attention. The best ways to learn are novelty, humor, and surprise, because the brain is looking for something new. It is constantly looking for stimuli, and the system in the lower brain, which is known as a reticular activation system, filters out stimuli and decides which what to pay attention and what to ignore. The acquisition, the limbic system mentioned before, the center of emotion, intervene through the entire learning process. It's very important, stimulates the student to desire to refuse or tolerate knowledge. You can see the limbic system. And during this process, brain explores subjects by a variety of explicit or implicit methods. The error, I said before, it's considered very important because learning from mistakes offers the opportunity to weaken bad connections in favor of more appropriate connections. And very interesting to talk about memory. You know that many inputs are kept in the frontal lobe for short-term memory, which stores information for about 5 to 20 minutes. Most of these inputs are filtered and then discarded without being remembered if they're considered as not important or not compelling. If the inputs are considered relevant and meaningful, then they are routed to the hippocampus and they are maintained there. Hippocampus, it's a small crescent-shaped structure which learns quickly but has a limited memory capacity. This organizes, sorts and processes incoming information before sending it to the different areas of the cortex for long-term memorization. So the more associations are created in the brain, remember this, the more likely it is that the information will be encoded in long-term memory and therefore be available for recall. The long-term effect of learning is stabilization of memory by the growth of new synaptic contacts in the brain. Some tips here for teachers that learners best memorize information presented at the start. The information memorized second is that which is presented at the end of the lesson, and learners rarely memorize information presented in the middle. The neural pathway, which was used to process new information, can become a permanent route if the brain reuses stored information. That's why repetition and practice before is important. Several ways to improve memory, which include the heuristic diagrams I mentioned before, which can facilitate recall. Memory is a big chapter. We can talk for hours about this and what are techniques that we can improve memory. So learning involves much more than just communication between neurons. It requires neurons to activate together to create relationships so that information can be recalled and applied in different situations. And building relationships with what the student already knows and engaging information. This can promote long-term learning. Repetition, mentioned before, involves solidity of connections, acceleration, information flow, solidity of synaptic patterns, integration of processes, and procedural memory. And I said before, if you don't use it, you will lose it. The quote of neuroscientists, the brain deteriorates only when it is not being used. The disappearance of connections is called synaptic pruning. So this means that new connections between the neural networks can be established, but they can also weaken or disappear. So higher-order thinking, increase understanding retention, brain imaging technique shows that elaborate repetition with involvement of higher education cognitive abilities involve the frontal lobe of the brain, and this helps learners to make connections between new and old learning and to create new pathways to strengthen existing pathways. And the neuroscientist Hannes Last summarizes the 4 pillars that cognitive neuroscience has identified: is attention, active engagement, feedback, automation of knowledge and procedures, and the transfer from the explicit to the implicit. Before concluding, I want to say that during the COVID pandemic, I wrote an article which had a great impact all over the world. It had many readers all over the world. It was actually how to teach using this neuroscientific approach, because we know that during the quarantine, many people experience, especially students, many mental health disorders like anxiety, depression, stress, post-traumatic stress. And I think that the role of neuroscience is very important, was very important, especially this period, because it could give teachers the framework with the help of which they could develop challenging activities that could increase attention and improve memorization. Because human brain learns optimally, learns means makes a maximum number of connections when it is intrinsically motivated. So whether this brain, this was presented also on the national television and also in a journal from the Greek University, Homo Virtualis. So what are these principles? Again, I sum up that it's crucial to create positive emotions. This suggestion has a universal significance, it's not only restricted to coronavirus pandemic. Many learning pleasant because learning is reinforced by challenge and inhibited by threat. Challenging activities could increase attention and improve memorization. Develop social skills because our brain is social distancing. During the COVID pandemic was only physical. It shouldn't be related to isolation. We had online collaborative platforms that we can leverage in order to help students to foster the interaction skills. Even this period, we have asynchronous communication tools like chat channels, bulletin boards, and discussion groups. Develop self-awareness, encourage students to express their feelings and promote self-awareness, self-management. Create a safe environment because our brain needs security and adopted appropriate methodology. What is appropriate methodology is what fits best to our students, to the need, to arrangement, to their age. So thank you very much for your attention. For any question here discussed, I think it's an interesting field to explore and discover.